I want my legacy to say that Teddy Douglas was all about spreading good, positive energy through his music.
Today is April 16th, 2021. Who are we speaking with?
Teddy Douglas, Baltimore, Maryland, co-founder of Basement Boys Productions.
Let's get into it. What is the Basement Boys?
Basement Boys was a trio of three guys from Baltimore, Maryland, and we formed a group called the Basement Boys in 1986, and actually 85. Our first record was in 1986, and we're from Baltimore, Maryland. The original members was Jay Steinhour, Thommy Davis, and myself, Teddy Douglas. And the three of us started a production company out of Baltimore, producing dance records. Back then, they weren't called house records; they were just called club records or dance records. And our first record was "Love Don't Live Here Anymore," Jump Street Records, and we just kept producing records from that on 1986.
I love it. What's the difference between Basement Boys and Jasper Street?
Jasper Street is a group that we have that signed to Basement Boys Records. We have a record company, and Jasper Street is a group, is an artist, and they are signed to the label. Actually, Jasper Street is like a Parliament Funkadelic. It's headed by DJ Spin and myself, Sean Spencer, and we bring in mainly singers that were already around, session singers, and we formed a group. And right now, there's a group that's established pretty much: Vonita White, Randy Roberts, and Richard Burton.
Love it. When did you realize that you made it?
When we heard Gypsy Woman in Jamaica, we was on a vacation, and we heard Crystal Waters' Gypsy Woman on the radio in Jamaica, and we was like, "This is crazy." That was the first time we had heard that the record we did was out of Baltimore was basically taking off worldwide, and it's pretty overwhelming around that time. That was like around 1990.
Um, I am well versed that you are house music royalty, but why don't you let people know your resume in terms of who you've worked with? Crystal Waters, Ultra Nate, Michael Jackson.
Yep.
Go on.
Mass Order, Taja Seville, Vinx, Belita Woods, Leroy Burgess, Byron Stingley, Barbara Tucker. Oh my God, Nona Hendrix from LaBelle. Hmm, I mean, and then like the artists that we at one time we were a production company. That's what we started off, and we were basically signing people right off the street. Like Alternate Tate was one of our first major label artists on Warner Brothers, and then Crystal Waters was on Mercury, Mass Order on Columbia, and right after that, everybody started calling to do remixes for for a major label artists, and so that's how we got to work with Michael Jackson and all those other major label artists that I spoke of, like Nona Hendrix. So basically, we started as a production company in the '80s, and we just kept doing producing music, and then Crystal Waters' Gypsy One was our biggest record. And then right after that, 100% Pure Love was gold. So we had two gold records, and it just was American Music Awards, Grammy and Dance Music Awards, all kind of just things were just raining in. So right after that, we started Basement Boys Records, our own independent record label, like most of my peers at around that time. I think that was maybe late '90s, early 2000, late '90s. Masters at Work started MAW, and Tony Humphrey started Yellow Orange, and Def Mix started Dave Morales and Frankie Knuckles started Def Mix, and so on and so on. So we started Basement Boys Records, and we started continuing what we had done with the majors. Um, and we started working. That's how Jasper Street Company formed, and we worked with Leroy Burgess and Bleed Woods, and so on and so on. And to this day, we still have the record company going. We're gonna relaunch a new website next this month, and we have a new single from Byron Stingley called "We Belong Together." It's coming out in the May, and we're celebrating our 100th release this year on the label. And Byron is the 100th release single. It's coming out. So we've been doing this thing for pretty much forever.
I love it. Let's take it back to the beginning. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? Where do you live now?
Born and raised Baltimore, Maryland. Still live here. Um, Basically, this is where I get my inspiration. When we had all the big success with Crystal Waters and everybody, you should move to New York, you should move to London. But all my inspiration is right here in Baltimore.
I love that. Describe growing up. How important was the church and gospel in your upbringing and your influences?
It was I can't stress how important it was, because to actually have the black experience, you have to include that. I mean, there's no way to get around it, because that was part of my culture growing up. Baptist church and gospel and the blues and R&B and the Jackson Five and Last Night in the Pips. All that was part of my culture. So you can hear it in our music. There's Jasper Street is one of our biggest artists on the label, and very inspirational. Very inspirational stuff from Jasper Street Company. But yeah, it's really huge. It was really huge for me in my childhood growing up.
Uh, Talk to us about making the transition from um, being a music fan to being a music producer.
Um, that happened basically in the record stores. Back then, I was a record store salesman in the '80s. That's where I met Thommy Davis and Jay Steinhour through the record stores. A record store called Music Liberated, and that's where the two met. Between me being a record store salesman and a DJ at night, and making records in Jay's basement. That's where the name came from. And those two, that's where it all intersected. The record stores was basically where
How old were you at that time? You
I
were a
was.
teenager.
Wow, I was about 23, 24, something like that.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was just a kid. And I worked in a record store and DJed at night, and we made tracks basically in Jay's basement at night, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And we made the transition once we had a couple records, underneath our belt. We could basically, actually, I got fired from the record store because I was never there. But my
Ah,
only job I ever got fired in my life. But I got fired from 12-inch dance records. It was the big dance record store here in Baltimore, because the manager, Jerry Haley, he would always cover for me. Oh yeah, Teddy's here. And then one day the owner came in and found out I wasn't there, because I was up to 3, 4 o'clock in the morning in the studio working on our craft. We didn't know that all that studio time at night was going to actually mean something, further down the line, because we had all this music, all these tracks that we had been working on.
is Jay still involved in the music industry?
Yeah, he's more on the publishing and the business side of the Basin Boys situation, and I'm definitely more on the production side. Since we sold the studio, we had a big studio here in downtown Baltimore, and we sold the studio a couple years back, and
Why?
he sold. So I do most of the production. He does most of the business.
Oh, why did you guys sell the studio?
Well, that was an interesting time in the music business. if I could say. Everything started to change. I think that was mid 2000s, where like we were selling vinyl 10,000 pieces, and then it went to 5,000 and 3,000. If you sold 3,000, yeah. You sold 1,000, like yeah. Like, so we just like, it just went down, 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 and we we saw a shift. I mean, the whole EDM thing was coming in really strong. So what we were doing was taking a back seat. So all the major label deals we had, those major label A&R guys didn't have jobs anymore. All the black departments was shut down at the major labels. They shut their squeeze everything down to this little section, and we got a drop from Mercury, Brian McKnight, us, and Vanessa Williams. The whole thing got shrunken down to basically nothing. In terms, definitely all the black and the dance departments just got chopped. So basically, the facility that we had $1 million facility. The business wasn't supporting it. So the smart thing to do is, instead of just hanging on to it and hope things will change, we just decided that we were going to close that big facility and regroup. So that's what we did.
Wise choice given the circumstances.
Yeah, it was a weird time. So we could have let just kept going, and hopefully things will turn around, or do EDM, or try to fit into what was going on. But we never was that type of production company. We wasn't going to try to fit, start making EDM music just to survive.
Right. Love that. Describe house music in one word.
In one word, ooh, one word.
Or as many words as you want. It's a two-part question, right?
Okay.
Well, three-part question. First part is define house music. The second part is soulful house. The third part is the Baltimore sound. So house, soulful house, and then the Baltimore sound.
Well, if I would describe house, because I've been DJing for a long time, and the term house just came from a club called the Warehouse, basically. So when I think of house, it incorporates, and I can't really say it in a couple of words, but maybe I'll try to make it as short as I can
No, you can
possibly.
use as many words as you want. So what
But
you want to
it
do.
is a collection or collage or of music, of dance music. I mean, because Rolling Stones "Miss You" could be house, because anything with a 4/4 beat timing could be considered house, because Philadelphia International and South Soul and all those records were played all in the same night, along with the early house records that were happening from Chicago. So the term house really has really um, a derivative to me from what we would call disco music, you know, and that's what I think the new term took over, from disco to house, and then from house now to, I guess we will call it electronic dance music, and who knows what the next term will be after that. So that's the way I view it. It's just because basically house music was right after that disco sucks and disco dies, and then they're burning records in the stadium in Chicago. House music was born out of that. So that's where and then for soulful house music, soulful house, the term I really am not a fan of. Um, I've never been a fan of the term soulful house. It allows you to put it in a box, and put it over here somewhere, where we started making, it's just all been house music, from the day one, and now you can marginalize it and put it over here, and you could put that over there and that over there. So I've never been a fan. I don't have anything good to say about that term. I don't know who invented that term. I don't know where the hell it came from, but I've never been a fan of the term soulful house.
All
Now, Baltimore sound is interesting, very interesting. There's this brand new documentary. It won't be brand new, but this brand new documentary. focusing on the Baltimore club sound here called Dark City Beneath the Beach. Just came on Netflix yesterday. Really, it just shines a light on the culture here in Baltimore. Like go is to DC, the Washington DC sound. Baltimore club is to Baltimore. Baltimore club sound is to Baltimore, and it's unique. It's really the connection between what we were doing already before a guy named Frank Ski, who was a big jockey in Baltimore, moved to Baltimore from Miami, and he incorporated the Miami bass along what this town would have been Chicago. Baltimore very house. From Wayne Davis and the origin of Odell's nightclub here. I know everybody knows about the Paradise Garage in New York, but we had our own Paradise Garage here in Baltimore called Odell's, where Wayne Davis was the DJ, and basically, um, we can we have a hard sound here in Baltimore. I was gonna say the connection between the Baltimore club and what we were doing. Wherever it is, it's got to have a lot of energy. So I would describe Baltimore sound as a lot of energy.
I love that. I love that.
And all the Baltimore DJs are really good DJs. I really could. I would put any DJ up against anybody from Baltimore. They're really good DJs here in Baltimore.
So explain to people what is or what was Odell's.
Odell's, yes.
So break it down in terms of like what was the era, what was the sound play there, who were the DJs, describe the interior of the club.
There was one DJ. There was no such thing as a multiple DJs. It was a quote unquote resident. Like we used to have one guy creating the sound the entire night. His name was Wayne Davis. And Odell's was our most famous club here in Baltimore. The late 70s ran to about 85 or 86 maybe, and then it was taken over. But um, Wayne Davis played a collective of all kinds of music, is what I was speaking of earlier, from uh, B-52s to uh, Lolita Holloway, disco, electronic dance music, Italian disco, anything that was a danceable beat, just like the Paradise Garage and Larry Levan. I mean, it was very eclectic in terms of what you were going to hear tonight. Some nights, you would hear Planet Rock in the same night, that you would hear a disco record. So that's what Odell's was. It was the foundation for everything that happened here in the nightlife here in Baltimore. It was our Studio 54, if you would say.
What is the paradox?
The paradox is the chain, the generation. Wayne Davis, who was the DJ from Odell's, the resident DJ, he left. Well, the club closed down in many years. He opened up a new club called Club Fantasy. City shut that down, and then he opened up this huge warehouse downtown Baltimore called the Paradox. And so it's still Wayne Davis, you know what I'm saying? So you can see the history that he continued to bring to the city. We got a street named after him down in front of Rodell's a couple years back. Yeah, he deserves it.
Is he still with us?
Yeah, he's still with. He's my best friend. Yes.
Okay. What is Hats?
Hats was my first nightclub, a first little bar that was my first resident. That was when I just learned how to program music, because I had to play from beginning to end. So the beginning, you couldn't start off with a train going 100 miles an hour. You had to gradually take the night up, 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 up. And that's how you learn how to program music. That was my first club. Yep. That's where I learned how to program records.
How long did you DJ there?
Maybe 3 years. Cause right after that, people were like, "Hey, who's that little fat motherfucker?" Oh, sorry. Who's that fat guy playing? Turning it out. And then Odell's, I got a chance to have a residence, not a residency, but quite a few guest appearances at the famous Odell's. You know what I mean? My first night was Lolita Holloway did a performance, and T Scott came down from New York, and it was like a huge party, and that was my debut. I was playing on the second floor. T Scott was playing on the first floor. So to get to play at Odell's was like, oh man, this was it for me, you know. And then from there on, I got to play at the clubhouse in Washington D.C., which was a huge club, influential club back in the day. And it's just snowball on and on and on.
Walk us through your, well, actually, before we get to that, when you produce a record, what is your intention?
To be honest, I'm gonna tell you a funny story. Our intent when we, Tommy and Jay and myself, we didn't have an intent to have records, and we just wanted to have a record that we could take from the studio and take it to the club and play it. That's what our intent was. It was not to have this career as a product, it just that just happened. So the intention was pure, very pure. It wasn't about ego or money or fame. It was all about the music. So that's always the intent. Is just to have people enjoy what you made. And if it makes money, then wonderful.
I love that. Let's do an autopsy. Jasper Street Company, A Feeling, 1995. One of my favorite songs of all time. How did you pack that song with so much energy, number one? And then number two, talk to us about coming up with the concept, the dream that you had, and then laying it down on a track in terms of process and timeline and finding the artist and all that stuff.
Well, I wish I could go into more detail than I'm about to, because the actual producer was DJ Spen. He actually, this was his first record on the label. Our first this was the first record was Kong Party, with Maurice Fulton, and Spin had the second release on the label, and he came to me with this amazing track that he did, this organ track, and he one day out when I was me and Jay and I were out of town, we gave him the keys to the main room, to the SSL room, and I heard he had a party. I heard many years later, the story comes out that he had Tracy Hamlin and Von Need, most of the Jasper Street members, and all these singers just coming in, and they were just doing parts, and he would record all. So they had like a jam session basically while Jay and I was away, and that's what you hear on the record. Basically, he had everybody come in and do something, and he put it together. It's a brilliant record.
It's fantastic. All right, so let's go back to production. Talk to us about your production process from idea to execution.
Okay.
How do you get the idea? Do you write it down? Does it come to you in a dream, or do you just go in the studio and just like, I'm gonna make a hit record today? Boom! Like, break it down for us.
The inspiration comes different ways. Okay, it doesn't come the same all the time for different songs. Like sometimes it might be I might be inspired by a groove that I heard or an old record. A lot of my record collection, I have a huge record collection. A lot of it is inspired by the music that I have in my collection. And a lot of times, like keyboard players or songwriters, like Gary Hudgens or Neil Conway or Mark Harris or Jose Clowney might write something and say, "Hey, check this out. We'd like to." Back in the day, we'd like to work with singers who were songwriters. That was the best combination, like Alternate, like Crystal Waters, like Mass Order. All three of those artists were great lyricists. They wrote their own songs. Um, Crystal wrote Gypsy Woman for Ultra's first album, but nobody could sing it like Crystal. When Ultra did the demo, it was like, no. Nobody could sing that like Crystal Waters with the slang and that twang and her attitude was just so basically we liked those singer songwriters, and then that made the process a lot easier.
How do you know when a song is done?
Ah, sometimes I don't know when to let go. I'm a big man. I get so criticized for that because I don't put a lot of records out, and that's the reason because sometimes I might have to sit with the record, because I want to hear the record 10 years from now or whatever. So a lot of times recently, I don't have the liberty of having my SSL room and listening to it over and over. I have to really make some hard decisions. And when I listen to the record and I can't critique it, this should be up the high, it should be louder, this should be, then it's finished. If I can't critique anything, then normally I would say okay, it can go. But it's got to be three things. It's got to be exciting. It's got to have a hook, and it's got to make you dance. If it got to, if I'm not dancing, then it's not it. Basically.
I love it. Uh, how important is a residency in
Oh yeah.
establishing a DJ's career?
We miss. I think I'm missing it. I wish it's very important. The DJ was the guy who created the sound for the club. I mean, you went to the club for the DJ, for that sound. You went to the garage for Larry Levan. You went to these clubs for that DJ. So that's missing. I mean, the 2 hour DJ, rapping. I think it's a mistake. I really do. I really think that the resident, you can't build anything, in that short amount of time. You can't build anything.
On the same note, let's talk about mentoring. How important is mentoring for a new or up and coming DJ?
I think mentoring is very important, and my mentoring days are, I think, come to a close because I've done a whole lot of that in my career. But I mean, I was one of those guys who put all of my artists and everybody before uh, ourselves. Basically, could have been Basin Boys featuring Crystal Waters, or Basin Boys featuring Arthur Tay. Could have been that. But we weren't that type of. We thought that the artist was bigger. So yeah, I believe in doing that. I believe I believe in featuring the artists.
Talk to us about your DJing. What's your approach to programming your DJ sets?
Oh, wow. Depends on where I am. I try to do a little research about like what they like and where I am. Where what um and um and I try to make it as authentic to me as possible because that way it's going to be the truest and the honest. So, meaning sometimes you might not get happy songs. Sometimes if I'm have not been feeling love that week, then you probably hear some angry songs in my set. Or so if I'm in love, then you might hear love songs all night long. So I program on my emotion, because that way, whatever it is, whether it's a love song, whether it's an angry night or love song night, it's going to be authentic, and the people can feel that.
That's true. That's so true. That's
Yeah, people can feel that.
so you sang on the early Bass Point Boys records. Which ones?
Oh my God. but for you, I'm gonna answer that. But just meaning to go back to like if you went to the garage and Larry Levan was having a bad night with his lover, the music would have been horrible.
Actually, let's stick with that. What did the Paradise Garage mean to you?
Oh man, I'm not a New Yorker, but everybody knows I have an affinity for New York. I spent a lot of time in New York because Baltimore is not that far from New York, 3 hours. And I grew up going to Better Days, listening to T. Scott. T. Scott was one of my favorite. Tony Humphries at Zanzibar in Jersey, and of course the Paradise Garage. I went to the Paradise Garage maybe about 5 times, including like the closing party. And what it meant everything in terms of what that whole what your tribe. You know what I mean? Larry Levan, that was my tribe. You know, that's what it meant to me. And the that's what it meant. It was my tribe, and we grew in that, and then it's that culture has continued. You know, with Body and Soul and the Shelter and that that whole thing. You know, that's my tribe. So it meant everything because I was a young kid. You know, I was like maybe 20, 22, 23 going to those clubs.
Got it. So back
Okay,
to,
first record, Love
yes.
Don't Live Here. I sang yes. That was the only record. The one and the only record because I knew after I did I did two shows, and the one was Clubhouse and Catacombs in Philly, and that was it. I said that's it. We gotta. That's when we decided we were going to be a production company. We started looking for talent. We started looking for people to sing these tracks that we were making, and that's how we found All Trinitane, Andre, and Whole Claw, and the list goes on and on. Yeah, I did that one record on Jump Street Records, and they forced me to do it because Cynthia Charity, A&R, she said, "Look, we heard you in the demo. If you don't sing it, bag it. You got no deal." So we went into a huddle, the three of us. We was like, they were like, "Yo, you gonna sing this song?" I was like, "Oh man,
Wow. Wow.
yeah, man, I had to do it."
Um, Controversial question.
Uh
Is it possible to make a living in the music industry today?
Oh wow, that's loaded. Um,
Real
not
talk.
not not the way we were doing it because I mean, it's tough. It's tough when you have a name. Just think if you were like a new guy, you know. It's tough. You have to make it other ways, and I would say like in performances, you make money, performing rather than trying to make records off of record sales. But now we're not even performing right now with this COVID. We're not even performing. So I would have to say, man, that's a tough one. You know, these kids are making music. And just putting it out like on YouTube and Spotify, not just throwing it out and hoping something will stick. I guess that's the new way because back when I was doing it, we solicited to A&R guys who actually have power to get your record on the radio and to DJs. That doesn't exist anymore.
It's true. What is Baltimore, Philadelphia International?
Oh, wow! You did your homework, man. Okay, that is a project that I have coming out later this year on my little brother's label, DJ Spec. He has a label called Quantize. And when he started the label, after he left Basement Boys, he was like, "Man, you gotta do something for for my label." I was like, "Man, get out of here! I ain't." And then I said, let me find a way to do this. I said, let me find a way to do it where it's going to be interesting for me, because he's family to me. So what I did was I call it Baltimore Philadelphia International because it's Baltimore artists, um, mainly stuff from his label and some stuff that I did originally, all Philadelphia International songs. And I merged those two together, and we're covering like Time Waits for No One by Gene Con, Don't Leave Me This Way, Teddy Pendergrass, and I've had Carmen Brown is doing most of the Gene Con covers, and Richard Burton is doing the Teddy Pendergrass covers. It's going to be a really cool project. It's coming out probably fall this year, 2021.
What is Monday night studio sessions?
Monday Night Studio Sessions is a great party that right before COVID, man, it was going through the roof. It's a party started by myself and DJ Tons. And DJ Tons used to work for me at Basin Boys Records. He used to be my assistant, and we just maintained a relationship over the years. And when the Paradox closed, we decided that, well, he decided that he wanted us to do something together, and we had this venue called Rockwell. And what I did was called up all my friends, Byron Stingley, Kenny Bowie, and Barbara Tucker, everybody, even Layla Hathaway came through to do what I thought was missing in the industry, where the artists have no place to showcase their songs and whatever. It's all about the DJ. So the night was basically um, a live PA with Tanj and myself DJing along with live musicians. And at 9 o'clock, we go into the live thing and feature whoever was that night. We've had, like I said, we've had Josh Milan, Lady Alma. And so this album that we're doing is the everybody that came in on for Monday, if they were out of town, I have them in the studio on Tuesday. So we do a record, you know. So I have all these records from everybody that performed at the Monday Night Studio Sessions party. Brilliant.
That is fucking genius.
Uh-huh. And so we got records from Barbara Tucker, Rochelle Fleming, which I released a few singles. But right before COVID happened, you know, the album would have been out by now, but it's coming out in the next couple of weeks. Yeah.
Talk to us about a dream collaboration. If you had unlimited budget, unlimited connections, who would you love to produce?
I already know. Everybody asked me this. It's Shaka Khan. No, no question. It's Shaka Khan. Shaka Khan. If you list, that will be. I would just. I don't know if I will be able to contain myself. But Shaka Khan is who I would love to work
I'll see what I can do. I'll see what I can do. I'll see
with.
what I can do. Um, how did you manage to simultaneously produce Crystal Waters, Ultra Nate, and Mass Order at the same time? Like, how did you like know, like, okay, this track is for this one, this is that person's sound, their voice sounds better on these type of
All
vocals. Like,
right.
how did you keep that straight in your head?
Wow. It's hard to even answer that question. But it helped, like I said earlier, when there are singer songwriters involved because they have a distinctive message or a distinctive thing that they want to say. And I thought I would always be good at a record company. I always wanted that was my goal really when I was working in a record store to be working at a record company because I always had an ear for what would be a hit. I could listen to an album and say those two songs are going to be the hits off that album, and that's just natural. That's just who I was from a little kid, you know. So I just take all of that experience and all those things that I learned and apply that when we were working with all those people. And I have to say, DJ Spin, because at that time, when we were working on our last album, Mass Order, Tommy left the group and DJ Spin came in. And so without his help, we had like you said, three major label albums going on at the same time. It was really, really intense. Really intense.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Um, advice. What advice do you give to the next generation of DJs and producers?
My biggest advice is to stay true to yourself because there's already you can you know there's all it's no you can be the best you because there's only one of you. So I would say stay authentically you and be persistent because that's basically what we did. I mean, we not from New York or whatever. We're from Baltimore. And we were very persistent back in the day, you know, getting those record deals. We would go up to New York and every other week we would drive to New York. We were very persistent. And we decided that we were going to stick to our guns. We were going to be us. And we didn't care about the genres and what was happening around us. We were going to stay true to our sound. And that's what made us basically, I guess, the longevity, you know, has happened because we stay true to. So I would just tell them, stay true to who you are.
COVID, how did it affect you, your business?
Mm. We have not played in front of people in the whole over a year, and me personally, I didn't mind because I don't go out. I really am not. I don't hang out. When you see me out, it's because I'm chicka 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 or spending whatever, or I might go out occasionally. But that part didn't bother me. But it affected our business because everything shut down. We can't promote any music, and financially it affected us because I haven't toured in a whole year. So financially, it was a big adjustment. Thank God that I had some savings, or else who knows? You know. So it was huge. It's huge. It's still challenging. We're scraping back. Trying to get back. But I've been in the studio with a mask on for the last 6 months, 5 months, whatever. Just basically me and my engineer Greg Lewis and Bill Pratt. Just basically, not having a whole lot of musicians, come in. So it's still challenging, man. We're still tiptoeing around this thing, man, so we can get back to some normalcy.
How did you discover Ultranete?
Ultra was a club girl. She used to hang out at Odell's, and she always used to dress like she would go to the thrift store and put this amazing outfit together that out of nothing. She always had that creativity. She could, when she walked in the room, you knew it was something special about her. And Tommy invited her to a what you would call a star search back in those days, but like a American Idol, where we had like 6 people audition because this was right after me saying no more singing. And she went in and she sang this cover of Angela Winbush, like a ballad, Angel type Angel. And I was like, man, she got this tone. It was smoky. So she won out of the 6 people, out of the 6 auditions. She was the one that we chose. And that's how it happened, basically.
Wow. How did you discover Crystal Waters?
Crystal was discovered, back in the day, they used to do, like in the 80s, they used to do seminars, music seminars, where you go around, you pass out your cassette tape to people. Hey, do a song tape? And so she was passing her tape around. She was a part of a group, duo, her and another guy called Martin Art. And they were doing stuff like Swing Out Sister, kind of jazz. But when we listened to the tape, the cassette tape, we thought that the songs were kind of, somebody's writing some really great songs. The lyrics were great, and she was great. We didn't care for him too much, so we broke the group up. We broke the group up,
Uh,
and and uh, and hired her basically at first to write songs because for Ultra, because we had a major label record deal with Alternate and Warner Brothers worldwide, London, the first time in London. So we had her write some songs, and Gypsy Woman was one of the songs, and that's when we knew Crystal Waters had to be an artist, and that's how it all began. Then she wrote "Make It Happy" and "Small Cry for Help" and that whole surprise album. Surprise, that's one of my favorites.
how much unreleased music do you have?
Tons. Tons. I was just thinking about, like, I have dats in my house from when we moved to studio, just tons of unfinished music. So with this COVID thing happening, it didn't bother me that much because I have so much stuff that I could work on. Like I've been working for the last 5 months without not one musician in the studio. Um, a lot of it I've had in the can already. I'm working on like 3 different projects right now at the same time. I'm working on that project for Quantize, the Philadelphia International project. The Monday Night Studio says that was an edition, and then I'm doing a tribute to Quincy Jones project that I'm doing too. So I'm busy, man.
So you have hundreds or if not thousands of tracks.
Yeah, yeah, tons of boxes of dats, man, dats and tons of unfinished stuff around here. It's pretty crazy.
Final question. What do you want your legacy to be?
I want my legacy to say that Teddy Douglas was all about spreading good, positive energy through his music. That's what I want people to remember me by.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much.
Take care. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too, man.
All
Bye.
right. Bye-bye.